Later, he used an analogy in which each instinct was pictured as a, quote, chamber in which gas is constantly liberated, unquote. William McDougall, 1923. Freud, in his concept of the libido theory, also followed a hydraulic scheme. The libido increases, which leads to tension rising, which leads to unpleasure increasing. The sexual act decreases tension and unpleasure until the tension begins to rise again. Since similarly, Lorenz thought of recreation-specific energy like, quote, a gas consistently being pumped into a container, unquote, or a liquid in a reservoir that can discharge through a spring-loaded valve at the bottom. K. Lorenz, 1950. R. A. Hind has pointed out that in spite of a various difference, these and other instinct models, quote, share the idea of a substance capable of energizing behaviors held back in a container and subsequently released in action, unquote. R. A. Hind, 1960. The next, titled The Neo-Instinctivists, Sigmund Freud and Konrad Lorenz, Freud's Concept of Aggression. Note, a detailed history and analysis of Freud's concept of aggression will be found in the appendix. The great step forward made by Freud beyond the older instinctivists, and particularly McDougall, was that he unified all instincts under two categories: the sexual instincts and the instinct for self-preservation. Thus, Freud's history can be considered the last step in the development of the history of the instinct theory. As I shall show later, this very unification of the instincts under one, with the exception of the ego instinct. Page 36. Was also the first step in overcoming the whole instinctivistic concept, even though Freud was not aware of this. In the following, I shall deal only with Freud's concept of aggression, since his libido theory is well known and many can see this. Freud had paid relatively little attention to the phenomenon of aggression as long as he considered sexuality, libido, and self-preservation the two forces dominating man. From the 1920s on, this picture changed completely. In The Ego and the Id, 1923, and in his later writings, he postulated a new dichotomy, that of life instincts, eros and death instincts. Freud described the new theoretical phase in the following terms. Starting from speculations on the beginning of life, and from biological parallels, I drew the conclusions of life, and from biological contrary instinct seeking to dissolve there must exist another contrary instinct seeking to dissolve those units and to bring them back to their primeval inorganic state. That is to say, as well as eros, there was an instinct of death. Sigmund Freud, 1930. The death instinct is directed against the organism itself and thus is self-destructive drive.